As many of you know, there are two Democrats that I really like, Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang. And I'm just gonna come out right and say it. Andrew Yang is on, for me, two hard strikes. Now listen, don't take my word for it. Don't care about my opinion. Okay, I'm just letting you know. Andrew Yang has recently done a couple things that have me questioning my support for him. I'll try and keep that simple, like why I like Yang, but he's got a huge comprehensive list of all these different policy ideas. And I feel like he's somebody who's actually thinking about solutions and not just trying to be president for the sake of being president. A lot of these people running just want to be president, you know? I look at Tulsi Gabbard, and I see somebody who really wants to end these regime change wars, which I completely agree with. And I see someone who actually has the leadership and in my opinion, the skills and experience to be the commander-in-chief. Andrew Yang looks like he's really thought about policy, and I think he's actually planning on how to solve problems. He's also framing problems in a way that many people, they don't. It seems like he's communicating to people in a way that's sincere. Now, here's the thing. What does that guy weigh? 280 or something? Andrew Yang calls Donald Trump fat and a slob, challenges him to a push-up contest, and says America would love to see you pass out. And that, when I saw this, I saw a screenshot of this story. Thought it was fake. Look, if you like Yang, you don't got to get mad that I'm saying this, but I'm going to tell you straight up right now. The other day, Yang called Trump a white supremacist. That's ridiculous. I don't care for the stupid, garbled talking points. Trump is not a white supremacist. That's insane. There's so much lies and trash floating around that I can't deal with it. Yang said this, like he was kind of goaded into it by CNN. They were like, will you say it? Will you say it? And then he was like, well, I guess you have no choice. So he didn't directly say it, but he still agreed, right? And for me, that's just the ridiculous trash talking points that we see from the media for whatever reason, and it is not why I wanted someone like Yang on the debate stage. However, look, pencils have erasers, everybody gets a second chance. I usually say, 3 strikes and you're out. Well, here we go. This blew my mind. It's one thing to go up on CNN and be asked if the president's a white supremacist and say yes, and it is another thing. They're both on par with, they're both as bad in a sense. Saying Donald Trump is fat and a slob. Let me tell you something, okay? We'll read the story, but I want to get straight to the point. My criticisms, one of the biggest criticisms of Trump is that he is boorish. That's what I say all the time. He's bad-mannered, and the president needs to set an example for the American people. I am not a fan of that rhetoric. Now, I understand Trump supporters like that Trump is how they'll view it as strong and demanding, and he won't take any BS from anybody. Totally get it. I'm not saying he's not strong, for sure. I just don't like that particular attitude. Now, that's not the only reason. It's actually kind of a small reason. I think, policy is always more important. But you have to admit, personality, leadership, and setting an example is important for a president. So I'm not saying, I withdraw my support for Yang over this, but I'll tell you this, to Yang and his supporters, if I wanted someone who's going to stand up and call his opponents fat slobs and say he's better, Trump already does that. So so right now, if you're talking about Trump doing this and Yang doing it, okay, why would I bother supporting somebody who's gonna set a different example? It doesn't make sense to me. Okay, let's read the story though, and then I'll give some harder critiques. But before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. But of course, share this video if you like it, because YouTube has deranked this channel to oblivion, meaning it barely gets recommended anymore. So if you think it should, you can recommend it and tell YouTube to screw off. Anyway, let's read. They say, Andrew Yang on Saturday tore into Donald Trump, calling him fat and a slob who cheats at golf, challenged him to a push-up contest, and said America would love to see the president pass out trying to run a mile. The Democratic presidential contender started his presidential rift when chatting about all the fried food he was enjoying at the Iowa State Fair. Quote, I can't be eating crap on the trail too often because I need to stay in presidential form. Does that include saying a bunch of trash about the current president? That's not presidential form. And look, you guys watch my videos. I criticize Trump all the time for doing exactly this. Yang gets no free passes from me. No one wants a president who doesn't seem he can run a mile, I think. I don't know. Yeah, and you know what? Maybe there are people who don't mind having a president who calls his opponents fat pigs and slobs. I'm not one of them. And that's why I've repeatedly said I don't like Trump's attitude. He then turned to rip on the president. He said, I don't think Trump can run a mile. Trump is, how old is Trump? 71? Come on, man. Trump doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He's, my understanding is he's rather, he's a bit of a germaphobe, and he mocks him for this. I don't think the reason Trump can't run a mile is because he's out of shape. I think it's because he's 71, and many 71-year-olds can't run a mile. Would you, so he says, would you guys enjoy watching Donald Trump run a mile? That would be hysterical. What does that guy weigh, 280 or something? I say he passes out at the quarter-mile mark. Trump, at his last presidential physical in February 2019, tipped the scale at 243 pounds, according to his doctor. At 6 foot 3 inches tall, Trump had the body mass index of 30.4. Anything over 30 is considered obese. Yeah, but admittedly, too, I don't think the body mass index accounts for him being 6 foot 3. The body mass index is a terrible standard. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, Trump's fat, for sure. I guess that's obese. But he's also 71, okay? Old people aren't particularly running around all the time. And I'm surprised Trump isn't retired. Yang said he'd love to challenge Trump, who is known for his love of fast food and disdain for exercise. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Daily Mail, it's not disdain, it's disdain. All right, get a copy editor. Oh yeah, I'd challenge Donald Trump to any physical or mental feat under the sun. Oh God, what can that guy beat me at? Being a slob? Man. I saw this and I thought somebody photoshopped it. I was like, no way Yang is saying all this. This is nuts. Like, I don't know. Yeah, let's just keep reading, man. His campaign staff tried to pull Yang from his question and answer session with reporters, but Yang stayed before the microphone and kept going. I can do approximately infinity more push-ups to Donald Trump, he said. When reporters asked him to demonstrate, the campaign staff stepped in, and Yang declined to do so and said, I take pride in my ability to do push-ups on a dime. This is weird. I mean, this is really out of character for Yang. And I gotta say, it is a huge put-off. I am not somebody who wants to vote for a candidate who's speaking in this way, okay? And that's why, I mean, a lot of liberals feel that way about Trump. Now, here's the thing. I understand there are a lot of conservatives that like that Trump speaks the way he does because it's a sign of strength. And I've explained this to my liberal friends. Listen, man, when you see someone like Trump tell someone off and insult them, think about what that person's going to be like negotiating with a foreign country. He's not going to take any BS from them. Okay? So you have to understand why people like that. They say, hey, man, better to have a bully than the bullied, right? Better to have Trump go in and push people around than for us to get pushed around. Totally get it. I think it can be done in a way that's not as boorish. I think Obama was incredibly strong. I think he had a lot of really, really bad policies. And on foreign policy, he was terrifying. But I think Obama had a strength none of the other Democrats have right now. And perhaps Yang is trying to, I think maybe this has to do with him crying recently. And now he's worried he looks weak. So he comes out like, everybody tries to appear strong. But I'll tell you this. When you're not a strong man and you try to pretend to be, boy, do you look silly. I'll just put it that way. Yang coming out and saying all this stuff is really bad. Really, really bad. But I'll say this, 3 strikes and you're out. And right now he's got 2 hard strikes. So if he keeps up this trash behavior, I'm not willing to vote for somebody for the sake of winning, right? If I wanted to beat Trump, I'd vote for Biden or I'd be saying, hey, everybody go vote. No, it's principle for me, okay? I think the crony corporate Democrats are trash. They're espousing garbled talking points that make no sense. Joe Biden doesn't even read the news, apparently. But Tulsi Gabbard clearly stands on principle. She's a major with experience, and I do believe she's wrong on many things. But she has the character, the demeanor, and the experience to be commander-in-chief, and she speaks about some of the really important issues to me, like I think private prisons are horrifying. She's very anti-war. Yang's website has a huge list of policy positions. For one, he's pro-nuclear energy. I thought that was, common sense and the right thing to do. I don't completely agree with his gun policy or his news ombudsman policy. I don't know how that would even work. He has a policy for like a government agent who would track fake news, which doesn't seem to make sense because we have the First Amendment. So look, there's a lot of things to criticize Yang for, but for the most part, so long as they're entertaining, they have policy positions that are sound, and they're coming off as real Americans, real individuals who are trying to do the right thing, and I'm going to say it, bring the country together. I'm all for it. I think Tulsi does a great job. Yang and Tulsi have both reached across the aisle and appeared on conservative shows in an effort to bridge that gap. But now it seems like as Yang goes up in the polls, he's becoming more and more of your typical talking point crony type Democrat. Because the last thing he said the other day was that Trump is a white supremacist. Now, the quote, he's not quoted as saying the president is, but he starts by saying the president's actions of words have conveyed a very strong sense to many Americans that he has white supremacists. Oh, come on, man. Yeah, the Orange Man Bad Network audience of 2 million people. The average person in this country does not care or think that. That's insane. That is nuts. Now, look, there are a lot of people who think that. Probably a lot of Democrats, maybe in the tens of millions. But I can only blame the media for that. The average person is like, I don't know. You know, it's really annoying to me because Trump criticizes Baltimore. And they're like, oh, it was racist for him to do that. Oh, please, dude. It's like, who hasn't criticized Baltimore? You know how much smack talk I've said about Chicago? No one's ever called me racist for saying Chicago is called Chirac. It's a slang term because there's more gun deaths in Chicago than Iraq. I grew up there. I know about the racial borders that divide the neighborhoods. And I've called all of this out. And pointing to the problem Chicago is not racist, and Trump saying rat-infested is also not racist. But of course, they come out and they push all this garbled talking point trash, and then Yang picks it up. So you know what? Let me tell you something. A lot of people ask me, Yang right now is the perfect example of why I absolutely detest supporting politicians, period. This is a great example. Now, he's not completely lost me. I'm willing to, like I said, 3 strikes and you're out. But this is what happens. Yang steps up into the fray, and he says a bunch of things that are, UBI's a bit out there. But he says, no, hear me out. Look, we can tax these major corporations that are using innovation to dominate the market, that are automating out these jobs. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually different. I thought, the big problem with UBI is that it's typically like a tax on every citizen to subsidize those who are working less. And so you're taking from the producers and shifting it to those who just don't work. That's not what the freedom dividend is. What Yang is talking about is Amazon, Google, Facebook, etc., making all of this money, paying very little in taxes, making money from other countries, and then paying a tax, either a VAT or some kind of tax that they can't escape from, on their goods and services that will then trickle down into the U.S. economy. So to put it simply, when Amazon makes money from a foreign country, we don't get any of that. That stays in their economy. The freedom dividend will pull some of that money into the American people. Makes sense. I don't know if I completely agree with it. I think it's got a lot of hurdles, but it makes sense. So then what happens is Yang starts going up in the polls, and there it is. He starts playing the same talking point trash game. Trump is a white supremacist. Now he's saying he's a fat slob who can't do push-ups, and it's like, here we go. Here's the thing. I always tell people, you can believe in a politician like Trump, like Bernie, like Obama. But I tell you what, man, I learned my lesson with Obama. Hope and change. Yes, we can, he said. Universal health care in the first term. I will sign that bill. All this great stuff. We're going to pull our troops out of the Middle East. And then what did he do? No, he increased the amount of troops. He started blowing up kids. And that's when I was like, wow. Then what else? He authorized the National Defense Authorization Act, indefinite detention provision, giving the U.S. the right to indefinitely detain someone without charge or trial, to essentially rendition people. He re-upped the AUMF for Middle Eastern conflict. Yeah, he didn't do anything that I wanted to happen. Okay, I was a teenager when the Iraq War was starting, and that was the world that was in my head. All my friends were shocked. The U.S. was entering a war in the Middle East. It was a bad idea, and Obama came around and said no. And so I said, yes, we can. I said it, and I voted for him. And then, no, we can't apparently. So no. Look, I recognize Obama's got strength in his voice, but I didn't vote for him the second time. I just didn't care. I'm like, yep, I get it. It was really a kind of a wake-up call for me in a lot of ways when I was gung-ho on like, wow, Obama is a different kind of guy. I had famous musicians that, saying this is the guys, we got to do it, and people I looked up to. And then it was really embarrassing when, it comes around to a second term, and I'm hearing from more libertarian and conservatives being like, what about X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, wow, I do not support those things. They're like, you voted for him. I'm like, that's a good point. There's no excuse. At least the way I see it. So as soon as people get into office, they change. And apparently when people go up in the polls, they change too. Look, I think Yang is trying to play a game to win that primary. So maybe he thinks coming out as another Orange Man Bad candidate is going to set him apart. Look, saying Orange Man Bad is not going to set you apart from Joe Biden. And in fact, Joe Biden is polling at the top. And Joe Biden refused to call Trump a white supremacist in the same story. He said, I'm not gonna say what you want me to say. His actions speak for himself or something like that. And I'm like, what? Why is Joe Biden taking? Oh man, you kidding me? Joe Biden is a generic I don't even think Joe Biden has any policies. Not only that, Joe Biden's mind is, I'm not trying to be mean, but he's too old for this. You know, he is repeatedly slurring and gaffing, and he's out of his game. Look, Yang is pulling a Trump. You can call it whatever you want, saying he's a fat slob and he wants to see him pass out. That's insane. I'm not for that. I'm not going to support someone who's for that either. If I say I don't like the attitude of Donald Trump, and then someone else wants to come out and do the same thing, I'm going to call you out just the same. And I'll end by saying this, exactly why I hate supporting politicians. I hate supporting groups. It's why I hate every single tribe. You know what, man? You could join a Pokemon card game club, and then you get like you have a binder, and you've got all these little stickers on your laptop, and then one day all of a sudden that Pokemon club becomes a fringe far-right group of evil gamers or something, and then everyone starts smearing you, and you're like, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about, man. This was a long time ago. So now what? I put my weight, to an extent, behind Yang, supported him, and now I have to justify this as why I supported somebody who would come out and call the president a fat slob white supremacist. I don't want to play that game. I don't. I thought Yang was going to come out and be presidential. I guess is the right word. Charismatic, calm, collected, poised. No, he's going to play the same game as everybody else, and he deserves criticism for it. So hopefully Tulsi doesn't go down that same path, but I think she's done a pretty good job. Actually, you know, and I have criticized Tulsi because she said Trump supported Al-Qaeda, and I was like, no, what are you talking about? Okay, she wanted to clarify her points, but saying that is leaps and bounds different from what Yang just did with these two comments. Saying Trump is a white supremacist and he's a fat slob who everyone wants to see pass out. Wow, that's jumping the shark. Tulsi saying Trump supported Al-Qaeda is like, hold on. I think there's a point buried in there somewhere, but that was horribly misstated. So the difference, I would say, is while they're both ridiculous, I think Tulsi was trying to make an actual cogent point, and I respect her and trust her enough to follow through with that point later on. I think she said something to the effect that, the things he's been doing with ISIS and other countries has resulted in a surge of Al-Qaeda or something. Either way, I think it was wrong for her to say, but criticizing Trump's foreign policy and making a hyperbolic statement is leaps and bounds different from accusing the president of being a fat slob, lazy white supremacist who you want to see pass out. You know what, man? Whatever. I'll stop now. Stick around. Next segment will be at 1 p.m. on this channel. I will see you then.